the Adventuring Party for the 4th week of March 2020. This week, the party discuss how to arrange some gaming when meeting in person is tricky or immoral. Wash your hands. The Adventuring Party, discussing tabletop and gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Liam.
I'm Eoin.
I'm still Savage.
And I'm Shane.
And this week we are here to talk about contingency plans, I guess. I'm asking the party. I'm coming back to the party on bended knee and say, please, Sages, give me your advice. We're currently in the middle of a COVID-19 outbreak here in Dublin. All of the schools and universities are closed. Most workplaces are telling people to work from home. And the government has said any gatherings of 100 people, indoor events with 100 people or more are basically banned, should be cancelled. Now, while your typical RPG isn't that big, the cons will be. Leprechaun certainly this weekend was a casualty. Vaticon next month is cancelled as well. And who knows how long this is going to go on for. And my RPG coming up this week, the players have expressed a preference to play online. Mm-hmm. And I've never done online play, so I don't really know where to start too much. So what do you guys think?
Well, it's probably worth noting that we're recording this episode over remote sort of devices. We're coordinating on Discord, and we're using web browsers and things like that to communicate and to plan this episode and to record. So I think we've just got about all of the material, all the tools we need to run a session right now, as long as someone's brought some dice.
Well, we can come back to whether we have dice or not during this episode, because we may have found a few things to help work through that.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start off there. Does any of you guys have any experience of online play?
I would say that I do, but my experience is from about the 10 to 5 years ago range.
Okay.
When I first got into sort of online play, it was very much forum based. We would go onto internet forums. For newer listeners, these were things like Something Awful, or like where people...
So kind of a play-by-post?
Yeah, exactly. And we would make threads on the forums, and people would take turns, hopefully, making posts of what their character was doing, asking for dice rolls, or in some cases just saying, well, my character attacks you, we have a social contract that you should probably take some damage. It worked fine, but had certain limitations.
It definitely seems to be its own medium.
Sorry?
It definitely seems to be its own medium.
Oh, yes. I would not consider it a great way to run more traditional games unless you have... for trying to run something heavy like D&D on it, you really want to essentially make it a normal organized session where you say, right, we're going to be online between 6 and 10, and someone needs to post every 10 minutes, and we'll keep up a flow. Because otherwise, the amount of dice rolls and pauses for action and pauses to ask questions would mean that even the simplest adventure would take weeks.
So Shane, how was it at its best, rather than, when it didn't work or didn't work very well? What was it really good for?
At its best, it was really good immersive roleplay. I had some really good back and forth with players, because the medium gives you more time to compose your thoughts, present your character, and write out, well, this is what I want to say, this is how I want to go in depth with this is where I want to focus. It works best when you're trying to be evocative and everyone is sort of using the best parts of the medium, which is text and time. It's a slow burn medium, but if that's the kind of role player you're looking for, it's actually really good. So I would still recommend Play by Post, mainly for lighter games where 1 or 2 dice rolls can decide most of a scene, so that you can focus again on the character writing.
It is technically not role-playing, but diplomacy is absolutely all about that. But Owen, you were going to go ahead and say something?
Yeah, I know about under 10 years ago I did a bunch of research about this, and by far the largest online role-playing community doing anything were systemless role-play games played on Anima message boards. That was by far the biggest, like dwarf anything else, and they used no systems, and they didn't even like the idea of using systems. It was pure kind of freeform roleplay with no systems, and I have no idea how they adjudicated conflicts, because I did a bit of research and I was like, how do you guys handle conflicts? And like, well, we just kind of pick who wins. And I was like, oh dear God, I'm having a heart attack.
I think it's just down to the mods, no?
I don't...
like if you break the social contract, the mods kind of deal with it.
I know it was done that way, and there was a huge IRC group as well kind of doing it, and Jenna Moran's Chuubo's Marvellous Wish Granting Engine was designed as an RPG to be played in that format, effectively on IRC.
More of a framework on it.
That was the framework for playing it, and that was the way it worked. All the little weird subsystems in it were entirely based on this is about playing on IRC and being a good one to play on IRC. And there was a whole thing of effectively, when someone did something, tagging their response, like slapping yourself in the face or something, just to basically go, or face palming, or basically laughing or pointing, and that was exactly like reacting to somebody's post online.
Wow.
To throw an emoji on it, and so the whole RPG was built like that, and that's the. But it was just no systems, no nothing for the most part, and that was the only one anyone ever sat down and said, actually, could I build a proper RPG, or like at least a systemed RPG for running this? And that was the one. That was the only one I've ever seen done.
Okay. So, well, I mean, that's the past. So people have looked at this 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, my play by post for diplomacy was back in college, so it was it was closer to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, say. But since then, we've had a lot of innovations. We've obviously a lot more stuff has moved online. There's a lot more virtualization. There's been a bunch of products that have come out now, mainly through Kickstarter, that allow more online play. I mean, there's just basic stuff that allows for group conference calling and stuff like that as well, like just straight up Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
But there's dedicated products now as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the biggest...
Quite a few of them.
Sorry?
Quite a few of them, yes. It seems to be a growth area at the moment.
I think one of the largest is Roll20.
It is big, but at the moment, so I logged on earlier on just as a bit of prep for this episode, and it is struggling at the moment. I think basically everybody's in the same boat. Their games are being cancelled, and everybody's logging on and trying to set up as well. So it looks pretty slick, and certainly for D&D 5, for Adventurers League, for Pathfinder, for a lot of the bigger games, it has a lot of integration into that, and it looks pretty slick for that. Their market is very much seems to be that you buy the materials on there. So you buy your map packs, you buy your characters, you buy your rules, you buy your campaign from them on that, and that's how they make their money.
Yeah. I think the sign that a new RPG has made it, quote unquote, is that they have a Roll20 content pack or 3 that they can roll out when people are starting to buy into the game.
Oh, and did you mention that you were setting up an online game?
Similar to, I'm also running Woofrup 4th Ed at the moment, though I was winding it down for a bit, but I may keep it going a bit more if I can get what I was looking at today working. So I was waiting basically for the second book of The Enemy Within to come out, so I could actually start using it, but it is not out yet. I was looking at using Foundry virtual tabletop, which is currently in sort of Patreon gated early access, The whole idea is that the GM buys the software, nobody else has to buy the software, and then you kind of create your own rules and setting inside it. And currently they've got 2 community built packs. They've got D&D 5th Ed and they've got Wolfram 4th Edition. And I've been messing around with it, trying to figure out the best way to use it. And I'm struggling at the moment because what's happened is, for some reason, it's refusing to download the Wolfram rules. And I was chatting with one of the guys who's designing the Wolfram plugin, and he was giving me some hints and tips, so I'm kind of running something at the moment in the background, trying to get it to work. And if it works, awesome, I'll report back. If it does not, I will try something different. Like, I was thinking about it and said we could just all sit on Discord, or maybe convert the Discord to a video call, and then just sit here having chat, basically everybody rolls some dice. There's an honor system, we run off that. But if I get this one working, I can actually do combats on a grid inside on the browser, and everyone can look in and roll dice within the browser. Like, it's actually pretty slick. So you go in, you open up your character sheet, you go down to the skill you want to roll, you right click roll, and you roll your skill, and it gives you a result, and everyone sees the results and your degrees of success and stuff. And if you forgot modifiers, you can go back and change your result. You can be like, actually, I forgot, add plus 20 on that, add plus 20 to it.
One of the big things that I think it seems to have going for it is that you get one person to host, and they download it, and then everybody else connects to them. So where Roll20 is struggling at the moment, I think, with the amount of, like, when I logged in earlier on, it took me about 10 minutes when I tried to log in, it took me about 10 minutes to reset my password, because I created an account for Roll20 2-3 years ago, promptly forgot my password and didn't log in, didn't check it out again. Today I went to reset it and it took me about 10 minutes just because the servers were going bananas. Obviously they can probably try and scale up, but the demand is, I'm speculating here, of course. I've only seen a couple of posts from them saying having some issues, dealing with it, but they're really struggling. Whereas if one person is hosting it, either if they host it on, if they got a decent broadband connection and they host it on their machine, if it's beefy enough, or if they've got a server and they can launch a VM on it, then you can run that locally and you don't need to touch anyone else's hardware.
Yeah, I think the local connection is a smart move. Like, it certainly is an option. It has advantages for a lot of people.
So the thing that strikes me about these systems and these virtual tabletops that have now become something of a way forward as people look for remote gaming opportunities is that they tend to have 2 systems going. You've got the role-playing system and all of its intricacies, and as Eoin mentioned, you're going to have to go back, you're going to have to change, modify things. Now, the good ones do tend to take a lot of the math out of your hands and say, look, just click the button, I'll tell you what the result is. But they are somewhat locked in. They've got to be checking this, that, and the other against databases. And if you don't get it right and your barbarian's power attack isn't working the way it should according to the rule set, you're going to be kind of pissed off. You're going to write some angry emails to the developers. And then there's the IT side of it, where you've got server load and you've got rendering and you've got lag and all sorts of other things that you've got 2 failure points now. Like, these are impressive when they work, but I can see an awful lot of people running into a kind of a hard wall of technical and sort of fiddly difficulties to begin with. And I do wonder, you might be able to crunch all the numbers in the world, but is this really the best way to roleplay online? Like video and given that what we're really doing is telling stories, and all those things Eoin described about the very earliest iterations where they were very systemless and it was more of a group consensus, I'm kind of looking at this and going, man, I really kind of want to try and play Fiasco across Discord or something like that, rather than trying to get a tabletop crunchy game going.
Well, assuming it works and all the numbers add up, you can play the most complicated system with one of these online players, and it enables you to get that same experience. Because if you're not really a system person, and you hate your arithmetic, let's say with Warfrup, My bad guy goes to attack Owen's character. Owen's character is using a rapier, which has the defensive quality, which gives me. Oh no, that's only on defense that I take a negative. Okay, right. Owen's character attacks my bad guy. Owen's character has a rapier, which means it gives me -1. Yeah, -1 success level on the attack. On the defense. It's because it's harder to defend against. But I'm also a champion, so if I win, he'll take damage. It's a lot to keep track of. But if you have a good online manager, then it handles all that, and you can play whatever the hell you want and trust that the system's taking care of it. Now, maybe not something like Foundry VTT, which is in beta, you know.
But that requires that the system be customizable for your rule set, and
yes, absolutely.
A lot of rule sets have their own intricacies, which are designed to be very easy to handle at the table. I think one of the main problems is very few role-playing systems are designed for streaming or this kind of over the internet play, and that's why something like Chuubo's suddenly has an advantage of actually being designed with this kind of thing in mind, whereas D&D and Wolfrup are still really designed to be played at the table face to face.
No, it's sloppy rule sets is the problem. If you actually have tight rules, it's actually fine. Because I chat with one of the guys who's designing this plugin all the time, and he's going, Mooman as well as one of the guys in Discord, and he's like, why is this? Why is it like? What's the timing on this? Which point do I allocate first? Because he's got to program it to run, and he said, "Well, what point do I take the bonus wounds from critical versus apply critical deflection? Because I need to plug this into the API so there's actually rules. If your rules are systematic and solid, it's really easy to program it in with a little bit of programming stuff, so it runs a little script and does it all in order. Because it's a computer. It could, if you go apply this bonus, apply these bonuses in this order." Apply these penalties, roll the dice, apply these results. You can get it all down to a one-line item that generates everything for you. But if it's fuzzy about when stuff happens, and it happens this way, this time, that's when all of a sudden the guy goes crazy trying to program it. It comes up in when you play, like, there are online tools for playing card games. And there were ones that, like, there's a Jigaku one for the Alpha 4 LCG, which is really good. Except there's 3 or 4 cards in the game with really sloppy rules that they tore their hair out trying to get to work. Because they're like, this card is a nightmare to play, because when I play it, I've got to keep recalculating things in the script. And like, when the rules are clear, it's actually really easy for them to program it. When they're not clear, when they're fuzzy and hand wavy, and ask your GM, that's when it goes to pot. And it's really interesting to watch somebody approach from a programming point of view and go, guys, what are the rules in this? When exactly does this happen? And we have to come up with, it probably happens at this point. This is probably the timing way you have to handle it. So yeah, it's a different problem. If your rules are good enough, you're fine. I'd say Pathfinder 2 would actually work really well because the rules are really clear about when stuff happens.
That's a good point, actually. Is Pathfinder 2... is it Paizo... Didn't Paizo... no, that was Fancy Flight. Remove their digital tools section. But yeah, is Pathfinder 2 supposed to get any digital tools of that type? Or is it making a deal with Roll20 to engineer...
I think they're farmed out, yeah. They're not doing anything in-house.
Okay, let's take a look at... We've mentioned a couple of these competing platforms. Roll20 has come up. We've got a few others on the deck, though, don't we?
We do.
Foundry Virtual Tabletop that Owen's mentioned. Now, that almost seems to be setting itself up as the indie outsider compared to Roll20. It's making a point of being very system agnostic and homebrew friendly.
I think it's just a couple of lads deving stuff in their spare time, and the Patreon's just kind of paying some of their fees. Like, they're not exactly bringing it to the bank. Like, I think they're doing it out of a lot of love for what's out there, like for gaming. And
those are the guys I trust the most. Those are the guys I trust the most. The mad lunatics, you know, working in their basement, just going, I can fix this. I can make this work. That's the guy you want.
Speaking of mad lunacy, Shane put one under my nose called Tailspire. Shane, do you want to tell us exactly what is going on here?
All right, so I found this one when I was looking at the lovely YouTube channel, the animated Spellbook, who as do sponsorship as most YouTube channels these days do, and one of their sponsorship, and I later found that he actually uses this in his own online games, is Tailspire, and it's this elaborate tile-based game setup tool, which is basically sort of for bringing out RPG maps and building up terrain. They have a certain number of pre-made assets for thing, and then an elaborate system of gluing these assets together to make like buildings and props and forests. And I was watching him do one of his streams. He was streaming his not quite 5e game, an OSR inspired 5e hack called 5 Torches Deep, I believe. And you could see that he had sort of made his overland map, and then on the other side of his play space was sort of a zoomed in map of the encounter that they were having with these weird fairy creatures in the forest. So he essentially got this virtual board, and on one side was like a tiny model city and a tiny model town and a thin road, and then the other side of the table was a forest with individual trees and little miniatures like plopped down all over across it, and the proper size road and where they left their donkey and carts and all of this stuff. And it looked amazing, but also it was just like, how did he make this? How long did it take him to make this together? It looks like it is straightforward.
It's the quality you'd expect to see.
Is it actually available yet, though? Looking at their website, it looks as though it was a Kickstarter, which is due to be estimated delivery April 2020, so it looks like it's on our doorstep. But is it out yet?
Probably backers got early access, almost definitely.
It's worth stressing just how much like a set of toys this stuff looks. I mean, they've got bases, and the incredibly detailed settings buildings can be built up from building blocks. I think you could spend years developing your scenarios in this thing. And really, would you deliver anything different from a 2D map? Or, I mean, sure, it's evocative, but there's an awful lot of time spent rendering just how dice look in camera when they're thrown on the table. And I look at this and I just dread touching
Well, I'm Savage. You know, I play my Warfare for Theatre of the Mind, and I play my Pathfinder 2 with a flip mat out, and whatever minis I have to hand, you go and, spend a week or two crafting all of the scenery and terrain for a thing, and maybe a custom bad guy too. So, while I might be happy with a flat 2D view with any old pawn, I think this might be marketed to fellas such as yourself who are like, I want it to look real good.
It does look real good, but I wonder, is it fundamentally putting your effort in the wrong place? To like, who cares where the walls are? Just show me, or who cares what's on the wall? Oh, some torches and some paintings and tapestries. Isn't that the GM's?
You got two kinds of people that matters to. You got people who go, well, this is going to set the scene and it'll be really great, and you got people who are really into their tactics who are like, well, I need to know is that a tile I can move into or not, so I get my flanking or not.
Or you need to know which walls have the secret passageway hidden behind a bearskin, or which wall has.
I guarantee you, at rendering at this quality, it is not adaptable enough for you to do things like tear the tapestry apart aside and go, aha, there's the wall, or set it on fire. That is stuff that is still almost exclusively reserved for the GM to do in the minds of his players. One of the problems I have with so many of these tools is that they're very prescriptive. You've got the icon set that you're given, or are willing to spend an awful lot of time making yourself.
Or money.
You've got an engine that will do this and that. It'll move the pieces around the board, but it'll never allow one piece to jump up on the shoulders of another piece and represent that in this virtual tabletop. I honestly think if you're going to try and play a game online, try and keep it as simple as possible in terms of the technology you use and the amount of additional overhead work you have to do, because you're still going to have your NPC stat blocks, have your plot done, have some encounters ready for the players. And if you're then adding additional hours of fiddling with map tile sets or trying to get a data set to integrate for your campaign and then fudge some stuff for your house rules and then add some custom items, I think it's insane. I think you could spend hours a day, 2 days in a week getting a session ready using some of these things. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure your players are going to have any better time.
Well, I guess for me now at the moment is now I have plenty of free time because everything's cancelled.
That's a fair point.
Thanks to COVID-19, there's no cons, I ain't going to the cinema, my Water City class I teach on Wednesday nights off as well, so I actually do have a reasonable amount of time to prep my game, so I may be able to plonk about with Foundry VTT and get set up and have everything there. But assuming I didn't have the time, I don't know how good that system's going to be, because if I have to put a lot of stuff in there, would I be better off looking at something like using just Google Hangouts or Teams, if you have access to Teams, or some other kind of just online meeting place tool, and if I trust my party, just getting them to roll the dice out. If I don't trust my party, using a website like Roll for Your Party.
Yes.
Roll for Your .party to get the results.
Yes, we found this online. I believe a fellow party member, Donna, recommended it. Roll for Your .party. It looks like a pretty nice...
A place where you can all log in and see the roll happen.
Yeah, so
no fudging, no hiding.
When you go on, it randomly generates a room. So when I connected it, generated Roll for Your Party /room /honestly decent beagle. So if I give that URL to anyone, they can just join in and see what dice I've set up.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the flip side of this, actually, and this might sound perverse given all the things I've just said. I actually think a lot of these online tools for running games are really, really useful. If you're the kind of GM or players who don't really want to crunch a lot of those numbers or can't keep an entire sort of rule system in your head, it's great to be able to hit something that has plenty of hyperlinks, or you can click a button and get it to calculate an attack score while you're all gathered in the same room. I've used the D&D Beyond extensively in my tabletop game, which I had to cancel yesterday because of an overabundance of caution.
Some stuff makes me very excited as well, because secret information is always tricky to do in a tabletop environment, because you're either pulling a player out of the room and saying it to them, or passing them a note, or saying it, and all you guys don't know this, but I say this to this one person, and then everybody knows it.
Yeah.
But when you're playing with these kind of online applications, you may be able to PM it to the person. You may be able to, looking in Foundry VTT, you are able to tag that person's character with diseases, and then have the results of that disease, like the different symptoms and stuff, start to display. I looked at that and went, "Oh wow, that's amazing." Mainly because the party's been crawling around the sewers for a couple of hours, so that they're all going to have to roll for the various exotic diseases they've been picking up.
That's a good point, Liam, and I think I'm still waiting for a really great bottom-up built RPG system. I'm not really that worried about the setting or whatever, but a system that you can play on your phone, that the GM runs it from his phone, the players run it from their phones. So in theory, you could sit around a table, you don't have stacks of books, you don't have to worry about a battle mat or having a collection of miniatures, or you could do it with miniatures, but you can run your characters, do the private messaging, be able to see everybody's status, have the GM be able to hand out to each player magic items or bonuses or diseases, and have it something that just lives on phones or lives on tablets. I don't think we're quite there yet. I suspect it's another work of a couple of dedicated madmen.
Also, you need a good way to charge everyone's phones, because if you have 5 people around a table for 4 hours on their phones, that very quickly people will be knifing each other for wall sockets.
I don't know what... you're going to have to put away that flip phone Nokia or whatever it is you have, Shane. Most phones can probably handle a couple of hours of light computation at this point, surely. But I take your point. You can always get a battery pack.
Do you know how cheap clock cycles are these days? You say light computation, whatever application you got running there on there may be coded in the most half-assed fashion going to get it out there.
Slurping on the battery,
because it's generally easier to just keep adding stuff than it is to actually go rigorously through your code.
Fix it, yeah. Okay, point taken, but it is getting more manageable. I suppose the thing I'd really like to see in all of these, especially the virtual tabletops, is, and some of you guys who've delved into it a bit more can tell me, because I don't really have an insight, having not done my research. How often are you seeing the other players? How often are you seeing their character sheets or some representation of their characters? Because I think it's a huge part of gaming around a table, is being able to see other people's sort of take on what's happening.
In the Foundry, I know you can upload a picture for your character, and it has ability in it where the GM can look at somebody's character sheet and the player can look at their character sheet at any time. You just click on the icon for them, and it shows up. The big advantage for me, I think, without using any of this software, is to do battle mat stuff, because if someone's sitting at their computer, at a table it's bad enough, but at a computer their attention can easily wander for a bit. And if you go, "Hey Liam, your turn, what are you doing?" And Liam's like,
sorry, I'll put this down.
What's going on, Eoin? Describe the scene for me. And I'm like, I just literally describe. Look at your monitor. If I have to describe the scene, I can be there for 10 minutes explaining to Liam what's currently going on in the combat. If I can go look at the screen...
Hang on, I have the takeaway menu open. I have to just close this browser and get back onto the game.
Yeah, so at least then you can look at the map and go, there's where I am. Cool. So at least you get some idea, because I think that's valuable. To have, like, here's a visual representation. And you can probably do so. I want to fiddle around with it, do stuff like, okay, can I take a screen grab of a PDF file? Can I take a picture, just a screenshot of this picture, and dump it up on the file on the browser and go, here, look guys, this is the picture you're seeing. I don't have to pass around the book. There it is. Take a look. That's good functionality that improves the game.
Absolutely.
That basically gives people more buy-in, let people come back in and pay attention again. That I am looking forward to if I can get that going.
It's definitely handy with character portraits and stuff to be able to go, who are you talking to? This guy. And you can have a big library of them sitting there, and you can have a big folder in your desktop, and you can have random commenters and stuff. So, you know yourself. When a PC, if you hand them a portrait, they assume this is a person of import, because they've got a portrait. So if you have a big folder of random dudes, then you're like, and here's the barkeep, and they're like, the barkeep's got a portrait. They're obviously a big shot. And keep them on their toes. Pervert their expectations.
I think one of the things about all of these innovations is that you can do them with more normal tools with some effort. Like if you just have an IRC channel and an Imager album or what have you to host all the stuff, in theory you could do most of the stuff yourself. But the advantage of the tool is that it's all in one handy place, and you only need to do all your prep in one area. And the really advanced ones will sort of save all your work for you, and you can keep your campaign on a nice online backup drive, essentially.
I guess I think I've kind of settled on what I'm going to do for this coming Thursday. I think I'm going to start setting up Foundry VTT and encourage people to get on there and start getting their character stuff on there. But it looks like a lot of admin, certainly for me and for them to get going. So I don't know if it's practical to aim for that for Thursday. So I think we'll get as much as we can on it, spend a little bit of time getting it going, and then maybe just use a regular voice chat and a dice roller, either a physical dice and their physical character sheets for now, and just run with going that just for this week, and then maybe the following fortnight, ideally everything will be up and running.
And maybe the setup time will prove to have paid for itself over a couple of online sessions.
I do have a recommendation for a very good set of tools I've discovered for playing at the table, and I suspect quite useful for anyone who wants to do a fairly light setup if they're playing 5th Ed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 5e tools. 5e dot tools. For me, their strength is that they've lots and lots of easily searchable rules broken up by kind of stuff that's particular to players, rules in general, and then Dungeon Master stuff. My particular favourite has to be their Bestiary, which all the entries allow you to click on the hyperlink entry for, say, a stat, and it'll give you a saving roll, or you can click on their attack, and it'll give you attack roll and then damage. And it also usually includes a picture of the monster that you can just flash up on a screen or share to one of these other tool sets. So 5e.tools, and I think they integrate with Roll20 as well.
Is that everything, or is that just the OSR? OGL.
I don't want to get them in any sort of trouble, but they appear to have everything in the kitchen sink in there.
Right.
So they're probably running a little bit under the wire. But if you're the kind of person who likes to play quick and dirty, if nothing else, you can go and look at all sorts of interesting monsters and then just sort of decide, oh, well, I'll reskin it as something else and use it. But yeah, lots of really useful, very, very light. It's very design light, so it's just very basic HTML and Java that gets it off the floor. And it's I've absolutely found it useful for running at the table, and I think it is if you're running 5th Ed and you're not sure if you're going to spend the big bucks to get it running online, then it might be worth looking at this. It is nice to note that we have at the moment some really passionate people making these tools, and some of them are integrating, the whole sort of thing, everything from character portraits to battle mats to private messaging systems, and then there's scrappier sort of little bits and pieces of tools that you can use if you're just trying it for the first time over, say, Google Hangouts or Skype. There's probably going to be, as Liam, you've pointed, there's probably going to be an awful lot of this going on as more and more people resort to remote play in the next couple of months. But it seems like a good time to get into it. Any final thoughts, guys?
It's a good time to try it. I don't think we mentioned Fantasy Grounds, which is another one that does it as well, and they have other systems that some people mightn't have, like Vampire the Masquerade and DCC, which I'm playing at the moment.
Yeah, just saying, I knew there was a second big boy as well as Roll20, but yes, Fantasy Grounds is the one that kept escaping my mind.
It's ongoing subscription, so I guess that's less appealing. I mean, it's $4, which isn't a big thing, or you can pay it once off, 40 quid, and then boom, there you go, you're done. You have it for life. But there's a lot out there, and it's going to be interesting to try it out.
I am definitely going to try something out and see how it works, and I will report back with some more info.
Excellent. Of course, I think we mentioned at the top of the show that we have used Discord this evening to record this episode. It's not the only thing we're using Discord for, so if you want to check the show notes wherever you might be listening to this, you should find a link to the Discord server where we'd be delighted to see you. We are chatting away almost 24/7 on every gaming topic under the sun, running little sort of side games and all sorts of pointing out interesting tidbits of news.
Pass the book.
The pass the book quiz thread, oh my word.
And almost definitely before the month is out, we will probably have a little section for some kind of online game or chat or something, and maybe it will be on our Discord server that you end up playing online.
I haven't figured out the logistics of it yet, but I am contemplating and planning the idea of running a pub quiz. So again, with all of these gaming events and stuff being cancelled, having a pub quiz might be a good shed for some Friday night.
Put me down for a table.
So keep your eyes peeled.
Okay, Liam, do you want to wrap it up and take us out as we close out this
if you have any
session?
thoughts on online play, what are you doing? What are you doing with your players? Hit us up on social media, so or Facebook or Discord, wherever it is you want to catch us. But for now, this party is over.
Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. The hosts can be contacted directly by email at Liam, Eoin, Savage and scar@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike version 3 license.